A major shift in the race for U.S. Senate. New polling shows the underdog for Democrats could now be in the lead.
Folks are making up their minds. Folks are starting to tune in. So you're going to see some different results from what we've seen over the past 6 months or so.
The poll also shows a tight Republican primary getting even tighter. We break down the numbers and what it means for the choice facing Texas voters.
By doing all this, they're going to scare people from the process.
Millions of Texas voter records turned over to the Justice Department. What was shared, why the feds want the data, and why some officials worry this could affect our elections. Big changes could be coming for Texas hemp businesses, including huge fees and a ban on popular products. Critics call it a business killer, but supporters say it's necessary regulation. We break down the debate.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. We are 1 month away from the start of early voting for the Texas primary, and we're getting a glimpse at where the candidates for U.S. Senate stand. A new poll from Nexstar and Emerson College polling shows Austin area State Representative James Talarico leading Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The poll of more than 400 likely Democratic primary voters shows Talarico with 47% support, 9 points ahead of Crockett. The poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 4.8%. This is the first time that a publicly released poll has shown Talarico leading Crockett, and the margin of the lead is surprising. We spoke with Matt Taglia. He's the senior director of Emerson College polling. We asked him to dig deeper into the numbers.
Yeah, it was a little surprising to see Talarico up by this margin. However, I will point out that there are still 15% undecided, and this is not necessarily a done deal. There is space here for Crockett to come up. We do plan on polling this race again before the primary. But I think that just overall, voters have tuned in more than earlier in the month or in December of 2025. We've seen folks, especially in December, folks are distracted. They aren't necessarily thinking about the Senate race. So I think as we've seen folks turn their attention to the race, and as the races and the campaigns themselves have really begun in earnest, I think that has had a major effect, plus additional media coverage of the races. I think we're starting to see some selection here, some folks finally starting to make up their mind. And yet there is still space there. There is still a ways to go. What we're seeing here is that Talarico is winning among Hispanic voters and white voters by not a substantial margin. So there is still space there for Crockett, but he is winning those voters, majorities of those voters nonetheless. Meanwhile, Black voters are supporting Crockett with nearly 80% of the vote there. So I do think that she has consolidated that vote. We also see that more educated voters support Talarico, and that men support Talarico at higher rates. We see women are split between Talarico and Crockett. I think that right there, the female vote, I think that's where Crockett could also make some inroads. It is almost certain to be a majority female electorate on election day and in early voting. So again, there's still a ways to go in this race, and there still is space for Crockett here.
At a campaign event in Austin Thursday morning, Talarico downplayed the poll numbers.
I said on the first day of this campaign, I've said it every day since, that we are the underdog in this race, both in the primary and in the general.
In a statement, Crockett said, "Though I have doubts about the overall validity of this data and it fails to paint the full picture, there's only one Democrat the poll shows beating a Republican, and it's me."
We do plan on polling this race again. We'll see if these results hold, but you can call us an outlier, and that's fine, because we might be in this case. Again, people make up their minds and things shift. The electorate is not static.
We also asked about the Republican race for Senate. The results show Attorney General Ken Paxton in a virtual tie with incumbent Senator John Cornyn. Congressman Wesley Hunt polled third. No one is close to the threshold needed to avoid a runoff.
I think that we have seen pretty consistently that this is more of a two-horse race here between Paxton and Cornyn. We do see that Hunt's number is up, but I do wonder whether he could capture enough of that undecided vote. Now, that is a substantial number of undecided, 29%. There's still vote there up for grabs, but I think it's going to be very tough for Hunt to make up the difference there when these other candidates are performing so much better than he is, and when he might have trouble differentiating himself with some of these other candidates. Nevertheless, I expect this race to go to a runoff regardless of who the top two candidates are. But right now, as things stand, it looks like this is a Paxton-Cornyn race that will lead to a runoff between those two. I think that this is a very unique Republican primary here where the incumbent is really fighting for his life. And he very well may pull it out. He very well might make it to the runoff. That's probably very likely. But that runoff is going to be tough because those Hunt voters look a little bit more like Paxton voters. So Cornyn's going to be in for an uphill battle in that hypothetical runoff, I think, as well.
Next Saturday, you'll have a chance to hear from the two Democrats in the race for Senate. Nexstar Media is partnering with the Texas AFL-CIO to live stream a debate between Jasmine Crockett and James Talarico. The hour-long debate will happen at the union's convention. This will be the first time Crockett and Talarico will face off on the debate stage. You can watch it live on this Nexstar station's website or CTV streaming app on Saturday, January 24th at 2 p.m. Central. The poll also looked at the race for governor with the assumption that both incumbent Greg Abbott and Democratic State Representative Gina Hinojosa will win their primaries. The poll shows Abbott leading Hinojosa by 8 points in the November election.
We see Abbott here just over that 50% mark. So that's a pretty big number in terms of polling. When you see that someone is commanding a majority of the electorate, that's a bit of a sign. Now, it's not an overwhelming majority. He's not at 55% or 60% or anything like that, but he does have a little bit of an edge here. I think that as we get further into the election, as we get into the summer, we'll start to see a little bit more from the campaigns. My suspicion here is that Hinojosa does not have the same name ID as Abbott. I'm guessing that her campaign has really not started in earnest for the general election, as it shouldn't have yet, really. So that's not to say that this race is not competitive at all, but right now, as things stand, Abbott is in a good position, and I would feel pretty good with these results if I were him.
While Abbott and Hinojosa are polling within single digits of each other, there is a wide difference when it comes to campaign fundraising. Hinojosa reported that she raised more than $1 million in the 10 weeks since she launched her run for governor. Her campaign says the average donation was under $50. Governor Abbott reported raising more than $22 million in the period between July and December. Abbott's campaign says he has nearly $106 million on hand in his re-election bid. Texas turns over data on millions of voters to the Justice Department. Supporters call it election integrity. Opponents call it a threat to voter privacy. We dig into the debate and what's at stake. It's a regulatory overhaul that could reshape the market for hemp in Texas. It comes with new rules, skyrocketing fees, and a ban on popular products. The plan has some businesses pushing back and fighting to survive. Many Texans struggle to pay for health care, with high costs causing some to skip needed care. But there is some encouraging news. We look at the work to help people cover the cost of care. Information about millions of Texas voters is now in the hands of the federal government. The Secretary of State's office is complying with a Trump administration order aimed at removing ineligible voters from the rolls. Opponents say it invades Texans' privacy and could be used to remove legal voters ahead of upcoming elections. State Capitol correspondent Adam Schwager reports.
The U.S. Department of Justice is now combing through the entire list of Texas registered voters. The Texas Secretary of State's office gave it to them. The DOJ is comparing it to its databases to check for ineligible voters. In a statement, U.S. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said, "Clean voter rolls and basic election safeguards are requisites for free, fair, and transparent elections." The DOJ asked all 50 states for this information, along with sending a memorandum of understanding. While Texas did not provide us with a copy of their memorandum, the state of Wisconsin, who refused to cooperate with the DOJ, posted theirs. It asked them to remove any voters the DOJ says are ineligible within 45 days of the DOJ's request. Democratic National Committee and former DOJ Attorney Daniel Freeman says that would violate provisions of the National Voter Registration Act that give voters suspected of moving 2 full election cycles before kicking them off the rolls, and prevents voter roll purges within 90 days of a federal election.
And the reason for that is if there's a mistake, as long as you're far enough out from an election, you have a chance to re-register. But if that mistake is made too close to the election, someone might not find out.
On Monday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott acknowledged cooperation with the DOJ, saying on social media, "We want our voter rolls to be checked for potential ineligible registrations. Only U.S. citizens can vote in Texas." Houston area State Representative Ann Johnson said that job belongs to the state.
It is the Secretary of State of Texas that is the one that determines whether or not people are eligible to vote. And so we already have an election integrity process.
Texans have 3 major voting dates this year: a primary on March 3rd, a primary runoff on May 26th, and the 2026 midterms on November 3rd. To be eligible, a voter has to register at least 30 days prior to the election they intend to vote in. You can check your registration status online. For State of Texas, I'm Adam Schwager.
We reached out to the offices of Governor Greg Abbott, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and the Secretary of State for comment on this story. Abbott's office pointed us to his social media post, while Paxton's office did not respond. The Secretary of State's office shared 2 letters they sent to the DOJ confirming they signed the memorandum and affirming that they would follow all federal and Texas laws. The information shared included birth dates, driver's license numbers, and the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers. While Texas handed over information on its voters, the Justice Department is suing 23 states that did not. Some of the states that refused to comply said releasing the information would violate both state and federal law. The DOJ maintains this is all about election integrity. Accurate voter rolls are the foundation of election integrity, Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a news release, adding, "Any state that fails to meet this basic obligation of transparency can expect to see us in court." A new proposal could bring big changes for Texas hemp, including huge hikes on fees and a ban on some popular products. Why some small businesses say they won't survive if the rules go through. Work to help people seeking affordable health care is still underway in Washington, but there are some encouraging signs here in Texas. We look at what's making a difference. Lawmakers in Washington are still debating whether to continue expanded subsidies that would help lower health insurance premiums for millions of people who buy plans through the Affordable Care Act marketplace. Now, new data is giving us new insight about how many Texans are still relying on the ACA to get health coverage. And joining us now to talk more about data and what it shows is Charles Miller. He is the Health Policy Director for the nonprofit Texas 2036. Welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about this with you and your viewers.
Of course. So last year, Texas saw record enrollment through the ACA of nearly 4 million people. What do the latest numbers show?
So what we have is a snapshot as of January 3rd. And as of January 3rd, when there was 12 days left in the open enrollment period, we have seen enrollment of over 4.1 million. So even from last year's total numbers, that's an increase of about 150,000 people more covered than they were in the year before. Now, those are early numbers, and that is people who have made plan selections on the ACA marketplace. The other number that we're going to be watching for comes out next month, and that's what's called effectuated enrollment. That means when people actually get their first bill, do they make a payment?
So how would you say that this ongoing debate over extending those subsidies affected signups this year?
So there's been 2 big trends, and really how those expiration of those enhanced subsidies impacts you depends a lot on who you are, and it affects you very differently. The people that are getting hit the hardest by the expiration of these subsidies are those who make over 400% of the federal poverty level. Now in Texas, that's about 125,000 people who are enrolled at that level. And that's an income level that if you're an individual is about $60,000 a year. If you're a family of 4, it's about $120,000 a year. Those people are losing eligibility for their subsidies entirely and will be hit very hard. But that's only about 3.5% of the total enrollment in Texas. Now, for the rest of the 95% or so of individuals who are enrolled who are receiving subsidies, they will see their expected family contribution to premiums go up slightly. But what we also see, and this is where the good news is that value for those people is still quite good. And we think that that incredible value that is out there, when we're seeing about 3 million of those last year enrollees are still qualifying for a free plan, and about 1 million of our uninsured population is qualifying for a free plan.
We saw an interesting idea on the Texas 2036 website. Your team wrote that all policy is health policy. What does that mean to you? What policies does Texas 2036 advocate for?
So when we look at what impacts health outcomes, there's this idea, the experts call it non-medical drivers of health, but really it's this idea that a lot of what makes you healthy isn't determined at the doctor's office. It is the air you breathe. It's whether or not you're well employed. Are you out there exercising? Do you live in a safe neighborhood? And so Texas 2036, we work at a lot of areas outside of just the delivery of medical services. We work on making sure that the infrastructure is there, that there's safe drinking water available, that we have a vibrant economy to provide the jobs, and a good education system to provide the education, that are all of these factors that lead to healthy outcomes, not just seeing the doctor.
On Thursday, we saw President Trump announce an outline for new healthcare legislation. One goal is to lower costs. Are there things in that plan that match what you're pushing for?
So the plan doesn't have a whole lot of details, but we think directionally it's very much in line with what we call our healthy markets approach. And that healthy markets approach is trying to make sure that our healthcare markets are delivering affordable care so that people can get the care they need when they need it at a price they can afford. And the components of a healthy market are one that is informed, so we have to have transparency around price and quality, that's competitive, so there's options for people so that they can choose what care is right for them, and that's engaged. And this is maybe the hardest part, and this gets into a lot of the complexities that always bedevil these policy debates, but it gets into how plan designs are done and where the contracting disputes are. At the core of this, though, is making sure that there is alignment of interests, that healthcare providers are incentivized to deliver low price, high quality care, and that patients are incentivized to seek it out.
All right, Charles Miller from Texas 2036, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate your time as always.
Big changes could be coming for Texas hemp businesses, including huge fees and a ban on popular products.
So it would mean that I have to completely turn down and either close my businesses or relocate them to other states.
Critics call it a business killer, but supporters say it's necessary regulation. We break down the debate. Smokable Texas hemp could soon be banned, at least in any form that would get a user high. In response to Governor Greg Abbott's executive order on hemp regulations, the Department of State Health Services has proposed new rules. Those rules, as proposed, would effectively ban smokable products currently available in Texas and also increase fees on the hemp industry by tens of thousands of dollars. As Capitol correspondent Adam Schwager explains, these changes could shutter the Texas hemp industry as we know it.
Jumping from 155 to 20K per location annually is not regulation. It's a kill shot aimed at small operators.
The Texas hemp industry opposed to the proposed state health services rules to change the annual fees to sell hemp from $150 to $20,000, and the fees to grow hemp from $250 to $25,000.
And it's tough.
Austin hemp store operator Nicholas Mortellaro estimates he'd be on the hook for about $400,000 a year if these rules hold.
So it would mean that I have to completely turn down and either close my businesses or relocate them to other states.
But advocates at Texans for Safe and Drug-Free Youth say this is the cost of enforcement.
If Texas is going to make these products available, then we have to do things to keep kids safe, to keep our roads safe.
In addition to those fees, another new rule would take one of the hemp industry's most popular products off the shelves.
It affects any smokable flower or concentrate product. When you say marijuana, people think smoke a joint.
THC, the chemical compound that gets you high, is capped at 0.3% in legal hemp products. DSHS's proposal increases that definition of THC to include the total amount of THCA that will turn into THC when smoked, gutting smokable hemp's ability to get people high. While Governor Abbott recommended DSHS increase testing of the THCA to THC conversion, the hemp industry argues a definition change is something only the legislature can do.
While they may want that to be the law, they'll have to rely on the legislature when they reconvene to make it the law. They're a state agency, so they can't change the definition.
None of these rules are final yet, and DSHS is accepting public comment to their website until January 26th. For State of Texas, I'm Adam Schwager.
In a statement to us, State Health Services pointed to a part of Abbott's executive order citing a failed special session bill as potential guidance. That bill included the same fees the department is proposing. There is a crackdown on hemp products containing THC on the federal level. New regulations are expected to go into effect in November. The law will ban the sale of hemp-derived products with more than 0.4 milligrams of THC. That would criminalize almost all consumable hemp products nationwide. The provision was added in November during the final negotiations over the spending bill to end the federal government shutdown. But there is still work to change the law before it takes effect. Earlier this week, Republican Congressman Jim Baird of Indiana introduced a bill that would push back the federal ban to 2028, giving the hemp industry more time to negotiate with lawmakers. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.